Coming at you live from New Jersey. I'm in Jersey right now. Um, Welcome to Spirit Matters. My name is Dao Gurunga, and I am flying solo today because Kishore Gopi, and Achyuta Gopal, Achyuta Chandra. No, my co-hosts Kishore Chandra and Achyuta Gopi are not able to join me today. But I didn't want to cancel on you guys. I was just like, you know what? I didn't want to cancel on you. I wanted to, even if I'm just here for a few minutes. So this may just be a short little episode today. It's Thanksgiving here in America. I know not even everybody here tunes in from America, but in America, it's Thanksgiving. And I wanted to come up, say hi, say thank you to all you guys, let you know that I love you, let you know I appreciate you, all of our live Zoom audience here, as well as those tuning in from wherever you are. Um, Thanksgiving in America and any holidays, I think about this. This is what I wanted to share. But I think about this anytime there's a celebration, and maybe this is just me. Maybe there's something twisted about this that I need to work out in therapy somewhere. But like whenever there's a celebration, I think about the people on the opposite end of the spectrum. Like if I'm going to a wedding and everyone's celebrating the beauty of love and coming together, I think about like the divorced people in the room and the isolation that may be welling up in somebody feeling on the outside of what's going on. Or if I'm, if it's Mother's Day and people are spewing out just loads of love for their mothers, and mothers are the best people, I think of people without mothers, or people who have been abused by their mothers, or people who feel like have lost a child, or are feel like they failed as a mother, etc. Because the world is not so picture perfect as we make it out to be. And sometimes in the celebration of life's beauty, it's easy to leave out people that are struggling with some of the darkness in it. And so I think on a day like Thanksgiving, it's beautiful to keep in mind the practice of gratitude, and at the same time allow ourselves to experience the compassion of people that struggle this time of year. I remember when I lived in an ashram. I lived as a monk. For those that don't know my full story, I lived as a monk for 10 years in the beginning years of my adult life. The first 10 years of my adult life, I um I lived in an ashram from 18 until 28, I guess 10 years, 18 to 28, 10 years. And I remember that I had a really good friend. Interestingly, I dreamt of this friend last night. His name is Jeremiah. He's a really sweet soul. He has since passed away. God bless his soul. My age, young guy. And we lived in the ashram together when I was in California in Laguna Beach. Um, Really sweet, hardworking, one of those guys who really just became a friend and took care of me and inspired me and held me together through tough times, and was I want to say a comrade, but I don't want to use that negative comrade. Like we weren't like in the army, but like a really brother in arms. And and every year, we were in the temple, and sometimes living in the temple, you kind of lose track when like Western holidays are. Like I remember one time eating dinner in the temple dining area in Laguna Beach, and there was like this commotion going on outside, and it sounded like a lot of children, and like people were knocking on the front door, and I couldn't figure out what's going on until I realized that it was Halloween. They were knocking on the temple door. But I didn't realize it because I didn't pay attention to, when the holidays were, because I was so absorbed in my own world. And so Thanksgiving and Christmas would come up, and a lot of us in Western backgrounds would go see our our biological families. During that time, our holiday season, you go spend time with family. And so the temple would get kind of empty, and I would actually go, even though I lived at the temple. I didn't see my family a whole lot through the year, but I would go on Christmas. I remember I'd go on Christmas. Thanksgiving, I didn't go to see my family because we were so busy at the temple. We would cook these big meals on Thanksgiving. But on Christmas, I'd go see my family. And this sweet friend of mine, Jeremiah, he would just stay back, and he told me, he said, Christmas always reminds me of poverty. Christmas always reminds me of poverty. Um, because he grew up homeless. He grew up homeless, and he was either living on the street, or he would be living in hotel rooms for periods of time in his life. And he remembers on Christmas wandering around, just looking at people living their lives or looking at shops. And it just it just shifted my whole perspective about this time of year. And I promise I'm not going into this like sinkhole of just like life is, nobody should be happy and make sure you're not happy today. And because it could easily go to that kind of place. But I think that what I'm getting to is, I was trying to think like, can I read a verse from the Gita today that is guidance giving and uplifting and connecting, rather than just like, here's some random words from Dayal just speaking to you on Thanksgiving because he likes the sound of his voice, which also is partially true. But I wanted to connect something, and it just kind of came to me. I thought of this verse from the 6th chapter of the Gita, one of my favorite verses, a very, very powerful verse. It's in the 6th chapter. And the 6th chapter of the Gita is all about the nature. Really, it focuses a lot about the nature of the mind and how the reality that we live in is very much shaped by the mind, by perception. Earlier on in the Gita, Krishna even talks about the idea of happiness being based, material happiness being based on a mental concoction. Uses this word, a mental concoction, meaning it's just something that we drum up in the mind. What is even actually pleasurable or painful, or the idea of beauty even, or the idea of success, or the idea of getting ahead in life, or the idea of what makes us happy. So much is just built off of the mind and how we perceive things, and what I tell myself, this is good, this is bad, that's acceptable, that's not acceptable, etc. And you see this so much in fashion and in trends of this, like, you look back at old pictures of yourself and it's like, what were we thinking, And it's like, I'm a 90s kid, and like 90s fashion is like coming back in style now, and it's like did it ever go back? Did it ever go out of style? And so it's like we just change our mind in terms of what's hip, what's popular, what's cool, what's beautiful, what's trendy, etc. And so the 6th chapter of the Gita is very much like, if you want to actually get ahead spiritually, you need to understand this powerful tool known as the mind, because it shapes your reality. And you need to learn how actually you can use your mind to navigate life rather than just be tossed around by it. And so in this 6th chapter of the Gita, there's a lot of verses about self-reflection, about creating stillness, about slowing down, about discipline, and not letting ourselves slip into a pattern of indulgence. Because when I slip into a pattern of either indulgence or what's the opposite of indulgence? Anyone want to help me out here in our chat? Opposite of indulgence? Redulgence, indulgence. We don't know. Deprivation. Oh my gosh, Stephanie, thank you. Deprivation. Moderation is in between. So not slipping into indulgence or deprivation. And so Krishna has these beautiful verses where he says that one who sleeps too much or sleeps too little, eats too much, eats too little, is not balanced in their recreation, etc. And so it's a lot about finding moderation, which is another word that's there. And so there's a lot of these verses about stillness, about moderation, about reflection, about discipline, etc. And because in that stillness, you start to see things you never saw before. In that reflection, when the waters of the mind start to still themselves and the waves calm down, you can look into the reflection of the mind, and you can actually start to see reality reflected back. You can see your real self, as opposed to just like the muddy waters or the wavy waters of a disturbed pond. And so it's a lot about creating stillness, creating that opportunity for reflection. And in verse 32, Krishna has this beautiful verse. And he mentions the idea of, once you're able to get in touch with yourself deeply, it allows you to begin getting in touch with others more deeply, right? And we start to see this true meaning of equality, the true meaning of where our spiritual a sense of spiritual oneness lies, not in the sense of I am you and you are me and we are, I want to say we are one happy family, but that's Barney. The spiritual Barney, man, Barney was a yogi. I am you, you are me. But the idea of that we share a common spiritual origin. That's oneness in spiritual life. Not that we're the same living being, we're separate, but we share a common source that unites us. And so Krishna says, this is chapter 6, verse 32. One is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to their own self, sees the true equality of all beings. Not true, and I'm extrapolating before I finish the verse. Not the true equality of all beings because we all look the same, because we all earn the same amount of money, because we all celebrate the same holidays, because we all grew up in the same neighborhood, or sat next to each other in high school, or wear the same type of clothes, or eat the same types of foods, or have the same athletic ability, or same color hair, or same color skin, or same color eyes, or same length of hair, or same type of hair, or same interest in sports, or root for the same sport team, or have the same diet. That equality, that is not the true equality of all beings. But when the perfect yogi, who comparison to their own self, sees the true quality of all beings in both their happiness and distress, Arjuna, one is a perfect yogi who, I'm going to rephrase it again, one is a perfect yogi who, and the word yoga means to connect. The word yoga means a spiritualist, a person who is wanting to dig deep into themselves and touch that inner eternal soul deep beyond the material identities that I cake onto myself. I am not rich. I am not poor. I am not fat. I am not thin. I am not materially beautiful or ugly. I'm not rich. I'm not poor. I'm not I'm not even a mom. I'm not a businesswoman. I'm not a comedian. I'm not a retail salesman. I'm not a taxi driver. I'm not a chef. I'm not any of those things beyond this life. And so yogi is somebody that I want to connect. I want to connect to you beyond those things. It's sort of like when we're in high school, who are your friends? Well, the people that you share science class with and sit next to each other. But as soon as you stop sitting, and then next year you have a whole new set of friends. And then you graduate from high school, you have a whole new set of friends. And you graduate college, you have a whole new set of friends. And yogic philosophy is saying that's how we operate as kids, but we operate the same way when we're adults. Because who are your friends? Who are your people? The people that you were born into the same family with. The people that you share bloodline with materially. Those are your people. And you take on the identity, I'm this brother, I'm this sister, I'm this mother, I'm this father, I'm this, that, this, whatever it may be. And we get caught in that small story. It may be true in this life. And there are responsibilities, there are connections, there are debts we pay to the people who took care of us and vice versa, et cetera. There's all of those things of family responsibility that shape us. But what happens at the end of this life? It's just like high school. You're no longer sitting next to the same kids in class anymore. You no longer have the same body that connected you to those people when you give up this life, when they give up their life. And we get bewildered. That's why the very first instruction that Krishna gives to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2:13, dehinos minyata dehe, that this embodied living being, we go through childhood, youth, old age. And he says a sober person, a dhira, a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. And so the yogi mentioned in this verse, the yogi is somebody who wants to connect to themselves and other people beyond all of those superficial. Doesn't mean that we deny it. Everyone goes home on Thanksgiving and says, like, you know, you're not my mom. Our friend Raghunath tells the story when he went to the first time he went to India, and he came back from India. He was a monk and he had Christmas. Like, what'd you learn in India? He was like, I learned you're not my mom. And so that's not the topic of conversation in the holiday season. But it means that actually, like, I respect the fact that you brought me into the world. I respect the fact that you increase your appreciation for people, but you also see beyond it. And so the yogi who wants to connect beyond, who by comparison to their own self, they see their own journey in both their happiness and distress, Arjuna. So in my moments and experiences of happiness and distress, by being aware in this life, I'm able to understand what other people go through also. I'm able to go through what other people go through. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the commentary of this verse, he says, one who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. They are aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of their own personal experience. They're aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of their own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of their relationship with God. Isn't that a powerful statement to turn on ourselves? The cause of my distress is my forgetfulness of my relationship with God. Why are you feeling so down? I forgot my relationship with God. Oh, I thought that it was because somebody was mean to you. No, it's because I actually forgot my relationship with God. And I thought that the validation of that person was so important. Therefore, what they say means so much to me. And when they say something mean, it makes me feel like a piece of crap. And I think I have no identity. And therefore, I feel bad about myself. But really, I forgot my relationship with God. And the cause of happiness, Srila Prabhupada continues, is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friends of all living entities. The perfect yogi knows that the living being who is conditioned by the modes of material nature is subjected to the threefold material miseries due to forgetfulness of their relationship with Krishna. That applies to me, it applies to you, it applies to everybody. So in my forgetfulness, in my sorrow, in my loneliness, in my challenge, in my disconnection, I can understand that everyone struggles with this. And I can look out and I can allow that to foster a greater sense of connection with other people, knowing that regardless of what people have or don't have materially, regardless of whether you're celebrating Thanksgiving or not, or whether you're with a beautiful, picture perfect family, or whether you are struggling and just like counting the seconds to get out of what seems to be a war zone over the table. Everyone is struggling with the sense that we are forgetful of our eternal relationship with Krishna. Prabhupada goes on, and because one in Krishna consciousness is happy, they try to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, they're the best philanthropist in the world, the dear servitor of the world and of the Lord. Prabhupada goes on to quote a verse from Bhagavad Gita. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living beings, and in this way is factually the friend of everyone. They are the best yogi because they do not desire perfection in yoga for their personal benefit, but tries for others also. They do not envy their fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested in their own personal elevation. The yogi who is withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying their best to turn everyone toward Krishna consciousness. And so Srila Prabhupada mentions here not becoming envious and understanding what is true happiness. So Srila Prabhupada himself, a little history lesson, 70-plus-year-old man who had nothing when he came to America and came to New York City, one of the capitals of the world, of people who had so much more than him materially, yet he felt compassion. He'd feel compassion. There was one time, there's a story that Srila Prabhupada drove by a golf course. And he grew up in India, didn't know what golf was. He grew up in India in the 1930s and 40s and 50s. He was born in 1936. And he didn't know what golf was. And so they explained to him and said, well, Srila Prabhupada, they have this big, beautiful field. And they get these metal sticks. There's these little metal sticks. And they take these really tiny balls. and they try to hit the ball like across the field. And there's this little tiny hole throughout the field, and they try to get the ball into the hole. And whoever can get the ball in the hole with the least amount of swings of their stick wins. And it usually takes a couple hours to play the game. And according to the story, Srila Prabhupada started crying. And he said, they're simply wasting their time. Now, that's not to make all the golfers in the world feel guilty. Srila Prabhupada himself sometimes would take a nap and he would say, now I'm going to waste time. And so, but let us not forget that where our true happiness lies. And the material world is a tricky place. The material world's a tricky place. Days like Thanksgiving, days like Christmas, days like celebrating someone's anniversary or wedding or birthday. Yesterday was my wife's birthday. The material world's like a carousel of happiness and distress. And for those of you that are feeling warmth and connection and love on this day in the company of friends and family, we salute you. And we, Kimberly gave a salute signal. We love you and we're grateful for you, and we hope and wish you all the best. And for those that are struggling, for those that feel alone, for those that don't even know Thanksgiving, for those that are tuning in from Kurukshetra, like some of our listeners are, or from Mumbai, they're like, thanks a what? I had some friends are like, hey, you want to hang out on Thursday? I'm like, it's Thanksgiving. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in Australia. And so, but for those that feel a sense of struggle, like maybe you don't know where to go, you don't have something to do, it reminds you of some of the pain you experience in your family. I want you to know that you're not alone, that you have a home in Krishna's heart, and that we love you and we see you and we care about you, and Krishna's calling you back, as are all of us, that regardless of the material happiness that we seem to have on the surface, everyone is yearning for Krishna's love. Srila Prabhupada was once asked, do you believe everyone is equal? And he says, I believe everyone deserves the chance to become Krishna conscious. And so everybody everywhere has this opportunity to connect deeply like the yogi. And so may your day be filled with compassion. May your day be filled with reflection and gratitude for the good things that seem to come into our life, and gratitude for the challenges that come that allow us to call us home on a deeper level, to a different home. And we appreciate you so much. And that's it. That's all I got. That's all I got. Anybody in the chat want to give a takeaway? Please feel free. And Kimberly's our takeaway. Just got to sum up what I said, Kimberly. Sorry.
Thanks, Dayal. I'm taking away just gratitude too for this community and for all the positive daily reminders. But we're also taking away that when we create stillness, we are able to see the reflection of the mind more clearly, and that we're all united by sharing the same common spiritual source. And when we connect to others on this level, it allows us to have more compassion for others, especially those who are struggling.
Thank you, Kimberly. Stephanie wrote, cultivate a personal connection through compassion, empathy with those in our lives, and offer a light of Krishna's mercy and great grace. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, guys, be well. Take care. And I look forward to seeing you, God willing, tomorrow. Same time, same place. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.